Imagine driving down the most beautiful road in Virginia, a 22-mile stretch of trees and history connecting Jamestown, Williamsburg, and Yorktown. Colonial National Historical Park, a designated scenic parkway, but at nighttime, it becomes something else entirely. No streetlights, and of course, no cell service in the 80s. Just long, isolated stretches where your headlights are the only thing between you and total darkness. Between 1986 and 1989, at least 8 young people drove onto that road and never made it back home alive. And the man responsible? He was a local fisherman. He lived in the community and he died in 2017. But here's the kicker. He died as a free man that never faced consequences for his actions at all. This is the story of the Colonial Parkway murders. To understand these murders, you have to understand the road they occurred in. The Colonial Parkway was built in the 1930s. It was designed to feel timeless. No commercial traffic and no billboards. Deliberately kept in a state that makes you feel like you've stepped back in history. For decades, it was actually one of Virginia's most beloved drives. But it had a secret. Long stretches of that parkway were complete dead zones. No lights, no pull-offs, and no cameras. And because it ran through National Park Service land, jurisdiction was split between local police, state police, and federal rangers. 3 agencies, 3 different sets of protocols, and 3 ways for cases to fall through the cracks. And in the late 1980s, someone figured that out. Kathy Thomas was 27 years old, a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, intelligent, driven, and deeply loved by her family. Becky Dowski was 21, a business management student at the College of William and Mary, a talented musician. By all accounts, someone with a bright future in front of her. On the evening of October 9th, 1986, they left a campus computer lab together. 3 days later, a jogger found Kathy's white Honda Civic at the bottom of an embankment, 7 miles east of Williamsburg, half hidden in thick shrubbery just feet from a 15-foot drop into the York River. Inside the car were both women, bound, strangled, stabbed. The investigation went nowhere, and the killer just moved on to their next victims. David Knobling was 20 years old. Robin Edwards was 14. One night in September 1987, it appears that Robin slipped out of her house. She met up with David, and the next morning, no one heard from either of them again. David's truck was found at the Ragged Island Wildlife Refuge, about 30 miles from the parkway. 4 days later, their bodies were discovered along the shoreline. Both had been shot in the back of the head. For 37 years, no one was charged. Keith Call and Cassandra Haley were students at Christopher Newport University. On April 9th, 1988, they went out on a date. The next day, Keith's car was found along the Colonial Parkway with the doors open and the keys inside. Keith and Cassandra were never found. To this day, their bodies have never been recovered, and their families have spent nearly 4 decades not knowing. The last confirmed case happened September 5th, 1989. Anna Maria Phelps, 18, and Daniel Lahr, 21, were driving from Amelia County to Virginia Beach. At a rest stop on Interstate 64, Daniel's car was found facing the wrong direction in the westbound lane. The doors were unlocked and the keys were still in the ignition, as if they'd simply stepped off for a moment. Their bodies were found weeks later in a wooded area. After Anna Maria and Daniel, the killings strangely stopped. For 4 decades, the Colonial Parkway murders were considered one of the most baffling, unsolved serial cases in American history. Part of the problem was jurisdiction. National Park Service land meant federal involvement, but local and state agencies were also investigating. At times, the cases weren't even officially linked. And to add to the confusion, investigators were quite literally not sharing information at all. There were over 150 persons of interest over the years, but dead ends everywhere. Crime scene photos were leaked to the public in 2009. They were used in a class by a retired FBI photographer. The families were simply horrified. And then slowly, DNA technology started changing everything. In 2022, forensic investigators finally made a connection. DNA from the Nobbling Edwards murders was linked to an unsolved strangulation of Teresa Lynn Howell, a 29-year-old woman last seen leaving a Hampton nightclub in 1989. 2 cases no one had ever connected. 2 cases with the same killer. Then in January 2024, Virginia State Police announced that DNA had identified a suspect, Alan Wade Wilmer Sr., a small-time fisherman from Lancaster County, Virginia. At this time, he had died in December 2017, at 63 years old, in his home, as a free man. And in January 2026, the FBI confirmed Wilmer was also responsible for the 1986 murders of Kathy Thomas and Becky Dowski. At minimum, 6 murders. Realistically, probably way more. Alan Wade Wilmer Sr. was nobody's idea of a monster. He was a fisherman, local, unremarkable man that lived in Lancaster County, the northern neck of Virginia, a rural peninsula somewhere between the Potomac and the Rappahannock rivers. There is no known prior criminal record that the public has been made aware of. 0 red flags that made investigators circle his name in the early years. The guy was simply there, existent as a part of the community for decades. Kathy Thomas's brother Bill has said publicly he believes that Wilmer is responsible for even more murders than the ones currently confirmed. But here's the haunting legal reality. Because Wilmer was never convicted of any crime before he died, his DNA cannot legally be uploaded into the federal CODIS database. The families are fighting to change that law because somewhere out there, there may be other victims, other families still waiting for an answer. But the current law won't let investigators fully chase those down. As of today, Keith Call and Cassandra Haley, the third couple, are still missing. Their case remains technically unsolved. No confirmed link to Wilmer. No bodies, no answers. But the FBI has stated clearly, this investigation is not over. 8 young people drove onto a road in Virginia and never came home again. The man who most likely killed them died in his own bed, free, never having spent a single day in prison for what he did. There's no satisfying end here, no courtroom moment, no justice in the traditional sense, just DNA and 4 decades and families who never stopped asking.